Hey, what's up, guys? Pete here. Going to talk today about effective activism. I called it Foundations to Impact. And joining me, my colleague in a lot of the past couple of years and a lot of the things I've learned is my boy Ademo.
What's going on, everybody? Glad to sit in here.
So we just wanted to share some ideas today, have more of a conversation than a speech. Pretty much, we're all about learning from each other, and we just want to share some of the things that we have learned with y'all to hopefully make us all more effective activists to have a bigger impact, so we can start doing the things we like doing instead of worrying about being told no and denied choices from people that don't like us living free. But
Yeah, so like Pete said, it's a good way to have a conversation here with this great, innovative way to have a conference. So I'm watching the chat on the other computer over here, so at any time, feel free to fire some questions. And, with that, I'll let Pete handle.
Right on. So yeah, I just had a few things. I've been watching, like a lot of y'all, I've been watching a lot of these different sessions the past couple days. Kudos to George. He's done an awesome job. Again, he's an awesome example of an effective activist. We'll get to some of those points. I think things he excels at that some of us do pretty well as well. But essentially, I just want to, if anybody caught Gary Chartier's speech yesterday on anarchism, my speech, is gonna, or this session's gonna echo a lot of what he said, essentially about taking care of yourself, like you internally, to be an effective activist externally. So I think first we should outline a goal. What are we trying to do? And I just wrote down to advance the voluntary society. But what is that, and why do we care about it? And I think it's because a lot of us are driven by whether you're a consequentialist or driven by natural rights and morality-based arguments. But at the end of the day, however you arrive there, or whether it's a mix, we know that and believe that such a world is more just, more creative, more dynamic, more prosperous, more humane, all the good things. So thanks to everybody out there doing stuff in your own areas, in your own veins. I guess I'll get started by saying, like, this all comes down to individuals. A lot of folks active in this conference are fans or adherents of Austrian economics, and just like they drill everything down to the individual instead of looking at meta, GDP, nation state data, these great fictions, they talk about individual actions. And so that's what I really want to stress today. So I want to start by talking about you internally, and then you externally as an ambassador, and then you externally working with others and having a big impact that way. So good to see everybody. And as Ademo said, we're watching the chat, so if anybody ever wants to chime in with a question, I'm not let's have this be interactive, and let's learn from each other. But so first, you internally, I wrote down become familiar with the ideas, have a good foundation. There's a lot of people that are well intentioned and that go out, that they may be nervous about talking about these ideas of liberty with others because they may not feel that they have as great a grasp or depth of knowledge in the ideas of liberty. So I think first and foremost, become familiar with the ideas. Some folks listen to hours and hours of podcasts by some smart people. Some folks, read books, blogs, things like that, but go to seminars. There's a lot of awesome opportunities such as this. This is like a crash course where we can all learn from each other and get a pretty good foundation. So I would encourage you, especially if you're in high school or college or grad school, go to there's a bunch of libertarian, anarchist kind of seminars that go on, the Students for Liberty, Institute for Humane Studies, Foundation for Economic Education, Independent Institute, Mises Institute, Foundation for Teaching Economics, Institute for Liberal Studies. There's a ton of outlets out there, so I would just encourage you to check them out in the summer if you have time. Also, if you go to, we just put a new page up. Ademo reminded me on libertyontour.com. There's an ideas tab now, libertyontour.com/ideas, where we have some of a compilation of some good resources to help you, further deepen your understanding of these ideas. Both because it'll help make you a more effective activist when you interact with folks. I don't know if you have any.
No, exactly. I would just echo a lot of what you said, is that being able to understand and know the ideas yourselves, and for whatever means that takes you to solidify those, is something that should be first and foremost when becoming an activist. I mean, I kind of did this on the fly joining Motorhome Diaries. So experience is another thing I would add to it, is actually getting out there and doing it also helps you, because having like peaceful conversations with folks and, you know, the back and forth really helped me to even, you know, smash the idea of minarchy, but also practice and solidify the idea. So read, blogs, everything else, whatever can. Um,
Sorry, guys,
we got some noise
that's
here.
my bad. I don't know where it's coming from.
Is it an ad?
I don't know, man. I don't have anything up.
Resolve Clean. So yeah, there's our pitch. We're now being sponsored by Resolve Clean.
No, I don't know. I don't
But,
see it in the ad, but
so yeah, that's what I'm saying. To know them yourself is very, very important. How much are we getting paid for this?
I don't know, man. Yeah, right?
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, sorry, guys. I'll close
What
it.
act of Nick Ford just asked us a question of
Sure.
what act of activism has impressed you the most this year so far? Act of activism. Well, John Bush was actually just on one of the previous channels I see in, and I think he even did a piece yesterday. So he's a super activist. But they recently did a thing down there with guns. They bought guns from people. The police department was buying guns. They were giving you I think it was $100 in food coupons, or like a gift card for a grocery store. And instead, John Bush and his crew down there with the Texans for Accountable Government were offering $110 in cash. So I think that was a really good form of activism. Right out there, right on the street, they bought a bunch of guns from folks. Like they had mentioned in their video, some of the folks who sold their guns to the cops, their guns actually didn't work. So they really weren't taking a dangerous weapon off the street as the program was intended. And all the ones John and them bought were of value, and and they were going to give them to people who need them. You know, single mothers who have, you know, families to protect and maybe not have the means, and get some education as well as how to use a firearm. So I think that was a really good form of activism out there in Austin. Props to John Bush.
Nice. Yeah, I think there's a lot of great examples, and to try to choose one is difficult, but one that came to my mind was the drinking game that happened here in Keene. When Ademo and I were on the road with LOT, it was, you know, the bureaucrats up here, like everywhere else, you know, just try to trample on people, and it was a pretty awesome example, a pretty innovative thing. They just took beer bottles and, you know, they put water in them and were drinking out of those, and, you know, a lot of people got arrested, and it really proved a point. It got national coverage, and though some folks are still, I guess, dealing with the repercussions. But again, change doesn't happen without risk. But the bigger risk is not doing anything. The bigger risk is just standing and sitting idly by and letting things get worse and not speaking up. So we do have to take some risks, and you know, some people are, you know, everybody's got a different line in the sand. So you know, if you don't want to be front and center and put yourself on the line, you know, there's a lot of things like Ian talk he just did on pirate radio. He mentioned, like, hey, if you don't want to have a pirate radio station in your house, like, you can help fund these things, or you can help provide some equipment, or you can help set it up, or whatever. And there's great examples where you know, you could have just as much impact, but not maybe be exposed to as much risk.
Yeah, exactly. Just to touch on a little further, is that you also define activism on like what you're trying to do. You know, some activism, like the Uncle Sam stuff that we do is to like reach a audience that has like no political, you know, ties already, or you know, worry about what the man is doing, and just to reach them on a comedy level. You know, sometimes the civil disobedience stuff is to reach, you know, people who are already active and willing to, you know, maybe move to New Hampshire for the Free State Project or freekeen.com. So you know, when you ask, you know, what's good activism you've seen lately, it all also depends on what you're shooting for. You know, the people who are using Shire Silver and the little cards with dimes in them, just trading those amongst friends is a great form of activism, though we might not see it online all the time, and it might not be the most promoted. Yeah, here we got one of these cards. It might not be some of the most promoted activism, but it is definitely of high quality and of great value. So it also is subjective too. So
right. So again, like back to like you internally, you getting a good foundation, I would say surround yourself, seek out good resources. There's a ton of awesome stuff out there. Larkin Rose is speaking currently, and he spoke last hour, and I know he pimped his book, The Greatest Superstition, but that book is phenomenal. Carl Watner's I Must Speak Out, a collection of his essays that he wrote for the Voluntarists, and other people's essays that were published in that are excellent as well. And if you're not familiar with that pamphlet, the Voluntarists, he's been sending it out for almost like 3 decades now. And Debbie Harbelson, who some of y'all know on Facebook, the Suburban Voluntarist, she has a blog right now, Debbie and Carl, that if you're not familiar with, check that out. She's essentially reading the first issue all the way to the latest issue, and her thoughts on each one as she reads them. So it's kind of like a what are those notes for books? Cliff Note version. If you don't have the time and ability to get access to all those, you can just check out that blog and get pretty schooled. Myself, I came into this through like the drug war angle, so um, me hearing me reading a book by James P. Gray back in the day on drug war, really, I knew it was wrong for a lot of reasons, but it helped me solidify and have some talking points and push me even further than Judge Gray advocates today, which is complete, no restrictions, no prohibitions at all, but self-ownership. But anyway, so yeah, again, I'll pump libertyontour.com/ideas, or hit either one of us up if you have specific interest in an area and you need some resources, or if you have questions. I mean, don't be afraid to ask questions. I still ask a lot of questions. Because the more you know and the more you're able to address and from different frameworks, from different angles, the more effective you can be, and we can all be together. So,
absolutely, yeah, I agree.
All right, so then after you get a good foundation yourself, the next point I have is just you externally, so how you interact with others. And it always comes down to being a good ambassador. Practice what you preach. Carl Wagner says, if you take care of the means, the end will take care of itself. And, Gandhi, be the change you want to see, and, all those kind of quotes. But, it really makes a difference if we are advocating complete freedom and complete freedom. The flip side of that coin is complete responsibility. And unfortunately, there's a lot of folks that I'm sure we've all had people in our lives we've interacted with, and I know, individually, we make mistakes and we fail ourselves too sometimes, but the difference is being responsible and learning from those, and trying to be a better person. And so yeah, practice what you preach. When you're in conversations with other people, especially like those new to the ideas, I know, we tend to get very excited about, hey, let's just like smash the state kind of angle, and like let's have freedom today. But and it's makes sense that we're excited about this because it seems the most logical and rights respecting everything. But make sure you give the person you're talking with enough time to get their points out and address their concerns. Don't just have a standard like, these are the 5 sentences or paragraphs that I always drop on somebody. Just actually listen to what they're saying. And then identify their concerns, and then inform them, yes, that is a valid concern. We have the same shared goal, but how about getting at it this way instead? That doesn't involve force and coercion. So try to address those. I said plant a seed. Try to give them a resource so they can follow up with things on their own time. Because if you meet, like, if I talk to a LaRouche guy on the street corner, like I know he's not going to change his mind in an hour, and I hope he doesn't, because that means if he just automatically accepts like voluntarism or whatever, then he may talk to a communist the next day and switch to be a communist or whatever. So
exactly. I think a good example of this, just to interrupt for a second, which might also answer a question that we have in the chat here, is when Pete's talking about, maybe not forcing things on them, but pick your place, time, and the amount of time you have, and don't try to let them swallow it all day. Give them time to chew on it themselves and come back with questions. One way we do that here in New Hampshire is by the Don't Take the Plea Deal outreach, and with that, you give people a flyer, and we have a moment or two to say a few things to them, like good luck in court, or how's the weather, anything to spur a conversation to bring, a familiar aspect to one another. But Kevin in the chat room asked the question about whether or not we're making any leeway, and I think there are people who have like expressed their appreciation for having this flyer, who have talked about not taking plea deals because of it, who have found freeking.com because of it, and through that there's more support. And like when Pete was arrested for the hat incident, there was even a favorable article and favorable comments by people that normally hate the activism here in New Hampshire, saying, oh, a hat's kind of silly. So I don't think without those little things and these small things that Pete's discussing now, that wouldn't have happened. People have been up here for 4 or 5 years already, and that's a luxury we get. Now just arriving here, that some of the tides have already been turned and it's chipping away. So
Right.
and real fast too, Tanya DeCant has a question about New Hampshire, and she says, "Are you in New Hampshire because of the Free State Project? Do you think Keene is the best place in New Hampshire to move for activism, or some others have suggested Grafton? What do you think?" Me personally, I'm a Keeniac, so I like Keene. I mean, she asked for activism, so my opinion would be that Keene has the most civil disobedient activism, non-compliance activism. Manchester has a good amount of that too, but they also have the political activism. And then Grafton is kind of like your off the grid thing. So, I mean, I guess it depends where you fit in there. Like a family who's coming up here who wants to live like a self-sufficient lifestyle and stuff might be better off in Grafton. Someone who has more of a techie or like a big city reliant job would probably do better off near Manchester, especially if you also are like want to be tied into politics in some way.
But yeah, there's awesome activist scenes everywhere. I think per capita, yeah, Keene is where it's at in terms of the number of activists on the ground. Like, we have the Keene Activist Center now that our buddy JJ's managing, and it's great. It's a great place to meet and chill and brainstorm and chillax, and it's great. We got Ian Freeman took that idea again, learned from someone else. He took that idea from Ernie Hancock's Freedom's Phoenix. There's great activist scenes all over the place though. San Diego, Phoenix, Philly, Orlando, Austin. Those are just some of the few that come to mind right away. But we're trying to get all those awesome folks up here because just imagine what we can do together.
One summer in New Hampshire, everybody comes up to New Hampshire one summer. Let's see what's up next year, 2012.
Yep.
You heard it here first.
Yep. We'll see what happens.
Yep.
But yeah, so try to leave them with a resource again to get back like that, like just if you're talking with someone and they have a question about like, oh, well, what about the poor, or what about copyrights, what about this or that, if you can give them a website or a book or a blog or something to go to check out on their own, that's key because for them to be exposed to a whole new paradigm of ideas, one where there is no central authority, it is difficult for some people. But if they can go and research it and chew on it themselves and digest it, it may take a day, it may take weeks, it may take years to finally for that conversation that you had with them to bear fruit. But if they honestly look at things with an open mind, I think that there's a great chance that they're going to agree and come to conclude that no masters, no slaves is a good idea. That control is a bad thing. So, and if possible, try to follow up with them. I know it's difficult in like conversations where you don't exchange information and stuff, but if it's a colleague or if it's someone at school or someone you see on the bus every day or something like that, just follow up with them and let them know that you're there and ask them how they interpreted those resources and stuff.
Yeah. Just like the guy at the maintenance man.
Oh yeah.
We started talking about silver and stuff, and now we're getting into like free market agorist and stuff. So it's just we get to see this guy 5, 10, 15, sometimes a little longer if he has more free time a week every Tuesday when we do our outreach. So it's just a good way. Like we kind of give him a little bit and step back, because you'll have this repetitive interaction. There's no need to jam down the throat. Especially like I remember having long nights in Marv here, with questions, and you talk about some things and you chew on it, and then the next day you talk about some more, and next thing you know, you're an anarchist.
Yeah, and even Nick's telling us to chillax, so
yeah,
we'll do our best, man. But yeah, even the cop who threw me to the ground in the Keene court a couple months ago, Cimarellas, I've seen him pretty much every week when we do that outreach since that happened. And I told him the first time, I said, hey, we obviously had a camera. Hey, you want to have a conversation? You want to sit down? You want to apologize? And he walked by, didn't say a thing. And then the next week, he talked a little bit to me, and he's talked a little bit more each time. And it got to the point where last time I talked to him, we were talking about me going out snowshoeing and New Hampshire, geography and things like that. So he still has yet to apologize, but obviously it'd be easy for me to go and despise him and treat him and his actions with hostility. But at the end of the day, it's an action, and though he is responsible for it, like I'm still here, I'm around, I'm not. He didn't resort to more, I guess, serious actions against me.
Well,
so
yeah, essentially, I mean, there's a great amount to be said for humanizing yourself with the alleged enemy or people of the state. he can lock somebody up that you don't know. He didn't know Pete then, and now if he's going to do those things or you have these ideas. So when you encounter folks like this and they humanize you, even if they don't agree with you, they would still have to agree or would be due to your relation. They see you as another person. They've seen you with your kids or out at your daily activities, et cetera, et cetera, where you're humanized then, and where they say, even though we disagree, I want my taxes and they don't. I'm still not going to force them. So you can at least get to that win.
Right.
Even if you can't get them to agree with the philosophy.
Right. Kevin says Pantera. I'll just say hells yes, and I'll say LOG, my friend, as well. But uh, but yeah. So after you take care of yourself internally and you have a good foundation, and then you work on being a good ambassador and things like that for yourself when you interact with other people, getting out there and having an impact. Just a few things I would stress. One of them, brainstorm, be strategic. We hit the road with Motorhome Diaries, and we were on the road 7 months, and we learned we learned so much as we went, but we learned every day, and we had an idea of what we wanted to do, but we learned a lot on the fly. So when we did Liberty on Tour, we took 2 months just to do logistics before we even hit the road, and that really helped us. And figuring out, learning from others and identifying pinch points is huge as well. There's just like technology, you can leapfrog technologies. We can learn from each other and leapfrog ideas. If I know that, like, you know. I don't know, the guys out in Orlando, John Kurtz and crew with the Cop Watch out there. If they do something that's real effective in terms of holding the police accountable, we can replicate that and try to document what you do, measure, try to have some measurables so you can see like whether. And it's difficult to have metrics that you measure when we're dealing with the world of ideas, obviously, but you know, all sorts of like online metrics and things like that, but. Try to measure what you do so you can gauge its effectiveness for the time you put into it and the effort that it necessitated. Um, but yeah, it's essentially it's like creative destruction. Learn from what you've done, learn from others, and just keep building and getting better and better. And also, I have try to have if you're doing something that is more visible, try to have a footprint in as many mediums as you can. So, like I said, if you prefer to stay behind the scenes and do whatever, that's cool. But if you are trying to get your message out and impact folks, by creating content, try to get that content out in as many mediums as possible. And a good example of this is the Cop Block podcast, the Police Accountability Report that Nick Barnett and Drew Phillips out in Arizona are doing for Cop Block. I was at a conference last weekend, and a girl came up to me and started saying how much she loved Cop Block, and then she right away was mentioning the podcast, and that's some people's chosen medium for consumption of the ideas. So try to get the medium out, try to get your content out there in as many mediums as possible.
Right, leveraging as many outlets. I mean, there's Twitter, there's Facebook, there's podcasts which are easy to set up. I mean, even look what George is doing with this great conference. If folks, hopefully some of those folks got some advertisements on here or in your videos. These are not also ways to leverage the ideas, but it's a way to network. So if you in Austin or Texas or excuse me, Florida or something like that, uh, want to help cross promote each other, you guys have same ideas. You can approach people to throw a logo of the intro and outro in your video, something that's real easy to do, which will help get, by putting their logo in, you're most likely going to get them to print your video, to publish it on their blog and through their networks as well, at bare minimum. If not, if after a while, if you get good viewers and things, you might even be able to sell these as spots. So not only could it be a way to network, but it also could be a way to subsidize or make money doing some of these forms of activism. So definitely attack it from all angles and try to network with as many like-minded organizations as possible. I mean, I think that's one of the strong points that I learned from Liberty on Tour was meeting up with some of the great folks that just, run some great operations all across the country.
Right, right. And an example of this for us, I mean, we looped Ethan Lavetta is like hitchhiking around the states. He did it last fall. He's doing it now, and he's blogging, putting content under Liberty on Tour banner. So it's a great, we could provide infrastructure, some institutional knowledge, and he's creating content. So it's a win-win situation. And there's a chance that, that LOT may be replicated in Canada. I'm talking with a guy now who's expressed interest in doing something like that. So that would be awesome if it works out. We could just keep doing what works and helping each other out.
Exactly. And just to address a few of the chat comments, Mike Finger asked, has there ever been anyone you couldn't reach? Absolutely. I mean, some people just feel that they need the security blanket that they think the state provides. Again, this I touched on this before a little bit. At some point, I can still get that person who wants to collectively live to agree to do that with like-minded people themselves, because there's other insecure people like them that would need that, and they can all live and have their Congress and all that stuff, and they would still agree that it's wrong for them to make me pay for their living. So if you can't reach them, I can agree to disagree with them, and I mean I don't waste much time on that. Like I do assess the situation. If I'm constantly hitting a brick wall, I'm gonna turn left or right sooner or later. So if I feel that way with an individual, and it's all subjective, I don't feel there's any shame in bailing. I mean, you can't reach everybody, and if you waste too long of one time on one person, then you miss 10 others. So
Right. Yeah, you have a scarcity of time. And a personal example on this for me has been my mom, and probably a lot of folks, for a lot of you watching, it's probably been similar in your own lives. People close to you, family members and stuff that you try to talk with, and my mom, she has a huge heart. She loves everybody, and I thought, I tried books, conversations, DVDs, different resources, and um, but she just, I don't think was getting it quite as clearly as I had hoped or in my intention. But she came out here to Keene when right after I got locked up for the hat thing, and Ademo was still in a cage, and her being on the ground here had a huge impact. I mean, I wouldn't say she's not an anarchist right now by any means, but she's definitely more open-minded about and understanding at least of why we're doing what we're doing. And for her, it came from people here just being good people, being responsible, and from her seeing firsthand how unaccountable the bureaucrats are. She even went up to the bailiff who had questioned me in court a couple weeks before and was asking him like how would he like that if someone treated his son or daughter that way and stuff like that. And like I looked over and I was like, way to go, mom. And we've had a lot of conversations since about that and about the going ons up here, and it so yes, there are people
definitely.
that you can't reach, but yeah, it takes different messages. It takes different.
Right, and with that, with the hat incident, and with Pete's mom talking to that person, it brings up another point that somebody asked a question about: is if New Hampshire activists or activists in general get singled out in courts. Yes, if you look at freekeen.com and especially its YouTube channel, you will see Judge Burke sentence people differently from others, even within the New Hampshire area, but not only activists, but somebody who's not an activist will get a small fine, and somebody who is an activist will go to jail. I mean, even myself, I was given 60 days contempt for telling him to fuck off, which
Just by fucking
yeah,
up.
big deal. So whatever, he has the only job in the
The
world that
state of
could
New
do that.
Hampshire was harmed, Ademo. Come on.
Exactly. I insulted the court.
Right.
So my point is that yes, people are being singled out, but unfortunately that's what happens. And I guess the more that happens, you leverage that. You take the PR, and right now I'm hoping that at some point when I have a little more free time is to compile a video of Judge Birch's sentences, and then essentially that'll smash his character. I mean, the video doesn't lie, and it is what it is. So you can, when they do that, we can use it to our advantage. So though it does happen, I don't want that to deter people from like, oh, I don't want to be an activist and go to jail twice as long. I mean, again, because of activists, I got out early. Because of activists, they dropped Peach charges. Because of activists, the domino effect keeps going. So because of activists, they spin it negatively, we'll spin it positively. Or we always have video. I mean, the thing that's great and that's the easiest thing about ours is that our activism is the truth. Like the whole Massachusetts wiretapping thing with us right now, like it bothers us and it chews on us all the time, but it's the truth. The video does not lie. I mean, I got a call from the ACLU yesterday about it, and they were kind of being back and forth. But to wrap it up quick, it's just that I told them just go check out the links. It's all there. Their stories are lies. Our stories are the truth. That's what we advocate.
Right.
Let everyone live their lives as long as they don't initiate force, and you're responsible for your actions. And here were your actions. So
Right.
I hope that doesn't deter anybody. That the man does come after you now. I mean, it's like Gandhi says. First they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. So we're in between that fighting and laughing phase, I guess. So
Yeah, and also to echo what Ademo said, we were in court last week for our buddy Jim Johnson, who was arrested last year as part of the Trespassing 12. Essentially, they built a new jail, and they previously a bunch of activists had gone outside the other jail to support their friends. They'd even held barbecues out there, never had an issue. A group went to support a friend who was held in this new jail because they hadn't let him take a shower in a week and things like that. and they walked around, and supposedly the cops claim that the staff claimed that they told folks that they had to leave or they'd be arrested for trespassing. But our friend says he never heard that order. And when one of the cops was on the stand testifying, he says he calls them the Free Staters. So he identified him as a group, and this is the thing. In a letter I just finally received the report from the bailiff who initiated the taking of like my arrest in January for the hat incident in Keene Court, and he starts out by saying an unidentified Free State project member. I mean, that's how we're seen by some of these folks with badges, and for me, and this is another thing to underscore. We started out talking about taking care of yourself individually, your own foundation, and then your conversations with others, being a good ambassador. But also, we should not view those who have different ideas as like this monolithic enemy, that us versus them, because like people work for the government, they're individuals. People work for the military, they're individuals. People who wear badges are individuals. So we can talk to them as individuals and say, look, your action, just like a lot of us do, like you're responsible for your own actions and stuff, and show that, hey, if you were walking down the street and you didn't have this badge on, would people question your actions? And if the answer is yes, then it means like you shouldn't be doing this kind of stuff. And you know,
Right. Right now, Shauna asked us the question. She's from here in Keene, New Hampshire. She says, has there ever been a planned activism that either of you thought could have been done better or simply different? And I mean, the answer to that is obviously yes. I mean,
definitely.
we did some activism in Atlanta that I guess could have been done a little better. Our whole stop sign escapade.
Oh,
So,
I don't know, maybe.
you
So
know,
according to some people, I mean,
right.
but yeah, there's stuff here in Keene that I don't like. Last year when we were working from the Starbucks here in Keene, we'd have, I don't know, 6 to 10 people a day talk to us working from the Starbucks just because we had Marv outside, and they'd be like, "Oh, what are you guys about? What's going on?" And the manager, at one point, this lady came up and very hostile. She asked the manager 2 days before, "Do you know what those guys are about? They're with the Free State Project." And the manager's like, "Well, they're nice guys. You should talk to them." So then 2 days later, I'm working and I feel someone's presence like standing over me, and I look over and she's like, she has this hostile, aggressive tone initially, but I talked to her for 15 minutes and essentially said like, look, we're all individuals. I don't agree with everything that's been done here, but and so it doesn't make sense for you to apply those actions to like myself or my colleague Ademo. And when she left, we shook hands, and I'm sure she doesn't love Free Staters or anything, but at least she's probably has a better mindset on looking at things as individual actions and not as a monolithic group.
Yep, and this can tie into what Pete was saying before about checking, the mathematics to see if the metrics on what is popular or not. So activism that I don't support or I don't think is done right, if I don't have the time to put in to correct it myself or do it how I think it should be done, or when I do, either way, when I put out the video and it gets 5 views, I know not to do that again. When I put out the video and it gets 100,000 views and they're all negative, I know not to do that again. So, if nobody shares it, I know not to do that again. Because, not because I'm trying to do what's popular or right, but I see in what we do, that's what's effective. That's what people are getting. Uncle Sam got a good reaction, so we're going to keep doing that. Some of the other things didn't get as well of a reaction. That's kind of why we stepped away from interviewing like policy heads. You didn't really get that, it's no better than mainstream or anything like that. So we try to, plus it wasn't really our personality anyways. So with that mix, so yeah, I mean, there is all kinds of activism that can be done. Even great activism probably can be done better. And we try to prove it every time. But you take the feedback, you take the metrics you see, as in YouTube hits, shared, Google Analytics, your references, pingbacks, and you roll the punches.
Right. And yeah, Mike has a good point. In the Middle East, he says much easier to convert armed forces than to fight them, and I mean, that's it. There's folks putting outreach packets together with some liberty-oriented books, to sending them to troops and things like that. I mean, they can have a big impact. But a couple other things I mentioned that I think are important. For me personally, at least, I would just say strike the root. Plant a flag. Make the argument where the argument begins. As who says that? That comedian dude?
Oh yeah, Doug Stanhope.
Yeah, Doug
Start the
Stanhope.
conversation where the conversation begins.
Yeah. So just strike the root. Like it's. I mean, but I'll obviously do so with a good tone and not being attacking of people, but just make the end argument. Like at what point would you use force against me to support this program or to pay for this or that? And it causes a lot of people to think about, like, yeah, this is messed up because I think generally most folks are good people, and they don't want to harm somebody else, purposefully. And if you point out, how the system that they support, this great fiction, does hurt real people, it does cause real harm, and if they're able to see that, yes, like maybe they wouldn't put a gun up to you and steal your money, but through them voting or condoning the existence of the system or telling you to work through the legislative process to change things, I mean, that's messed up. So, just strike the root and be hardcore. And, we have to, we're not going to advance this voluntary society without doing that. So why give up half the argument and say, oh yeah, let's have medical marijuana or something like, why do sick people have more rights than non-sick people? I mean,
Right. I mean, I think what I could say in that is that I feel sometimes those things of activism, though they're to each his own, but if you really look at it, you end up creating more walls to tear down. So like right now, Pete
right,
was going on the drug war. You have, drug war now and legalization or decrim, whatever, no regulations in the medical markets or,
free,
industry at all.
right,
Right. When you advocate for medical marijuana, you're saying that more people have, sick people should have more rights than you, and you build this wall to make people believe that, and then you get it passed. Then when you kind of come back and say, well, not just sick people should be
right,
allowed to put what they want in their body, everybody should. You
right,
have to tear that wall back down then, and then proceed forward. Let's just go right through it. Forget why build a wall just to tear it down later
right.
when that's the argument. So I try to be conscientious of that when I plan my activism. That I'm not trying to like create another wall. And I guess sometimes I do that with the parking with police cars breaking parking laws because that's really not the issue to me. But so I guess that's something I got to look at too.
Well,
But just should be conscious of that.
yeah, that's hypocritical. I mean, it's pointing out their hypocrisy. I
Right.
don't think that's a fault of.
Right. I'm saying if I don't clarify it though. I should clarify that I don't want them to be ticketed, and
Right.
that's where my
Well, then we'd have to make privatize the street arguments and you
and then
know
it's a whole other world.
privatize, yeah, everything.
So
But yeah, so I don't know, we have about 7 minutes left. So if anybody has any like questions, feel free to type them up. Otherwise, we'll just keep going. Another thing I'd say is important, at least I found is important for myself, is find a balance. Like you got to find something that's sustainable. I know I got a little burnt out over like in the last year, and just it's just figuring out what you can do and your level and stuff like that, and just um, be effective because there's a lot of good activists that I think unfortunately have some folks that we know that have stepped back their activism because they got burnt out, and it's unfortunate, but it's understandable that it happens. So we have to realize that this isn't something we're gonna do tomorrow. The world's not gonna, statism's not gonna cease tomorrow. Um, it's gonna take some time, but we're gonna get there. But just don't get
or
burnt out
man
and don't
man
get
will get there.
disillusioned. Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, and I think Sean made a good point here. Sean Lee in the chat. She's right. Being a good ambassador, like Pete mentioned earlier, is like the best form of activism. I mean, it's one thing to make a video or like say I read this book where like this free market thing works, but to actually exercise it, do it, and live it. I think that's one of the things I'm happiest about what Pete and I do is just like our transparency with our projects and things like that. So not only do we advocate that government should be responsible and that in the private sector without government regulations there would be transparency in business because it would be a way to compete, but we exercise that through our activism, which is essentially our business. And so it's definitely I think it's definitely left us with like a lot of positive feedback and people, that when we've been in pinches that have really been willing to help out because when we say we're going to do something, we're going to do it. So definitely a big plus there.
yeah. And Sean's been awesome. I mean, she helped a friend of mine in New York whose brother was having an issue with some bureaucrats, and never even met my friend, and just put a lot of time in and really made a positive impact, and is currently assisting helping somebody else in a similar situation. So like just this is a community, and I know there may be some folks participating in this right now that you may not have many friends in your area that have similar ideas, but know that this is a community, and it's a strong community, and we're here for each other. So if stuff, and hopefully that'll embolden you to speak out and stand up and do what you know is right, because we're here to help you.
Absolutely. But with that, I don't know if there's anybody else in the chat room that has a couple more questions for us. We'd be happy to ask them. I might have missed one or two. I'm not sure.
Oh, one thing I wanted to note too is stress ideas and not just a policy. Because anarchism or libertarian, whatever you self-describe it, it's a consistent framework. So once someone understands that the concepts of self-ownership and things like that, then you know how to answer every question, or you have a good idea how to address every question. That coercion and force and fraud aren't good things. And rather than, for example, someone who says, I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat or I'm a Green or something like, who you have, which means different things in different years. Republican this year meant something different than 10 years ago or 20 years ago or whatever, because they're political platforms and they change, just trying to capture more votes and try to get more control. So there is no consistency across, like, they say they're, conservatives, for example, claim to be like pro-life, but they're tend to be the biggest supporters of a big military that goes and kills a lot of people. So, like, or they claim to be free market advocates, yet they're the stalwart backers of drug prohibition, which is an absolute distortion of the free market and things like, and there's similar examples for everybody, but again, it's about ideas and not policy. So just try to get those ideas and the non-aggression principle of peace, of voluntary interactions out there.
Absolutely. And Sovereign Curtis out there wants me to pimp the summer in New Hampshire 2012, which is basically just an idea that us three and John Bush and Catherine Bleich thought about when they were up here this past weekend. So it's in the real loose areas of development, but we're thinking about calling it RAGE, which would be, it has some acronym for like
Rebels,
radical
or
anti-government extremists.
no, or was it Rebels Against Government Existence or
Oh
something?
yeah,
Yeah, government elimination.
implosion or something.
Yeah, well, anyway, we're working on it.
So we're working on it. But yeah, so it's just a loose idea that there's all these great hotspots all across the country. I mean, New Hampshire is obviously number one. If you don't believe me, come up here and tell me I'm wrong. I'd appreciate it. And if not, then the plan can work. Anyways, a lot of hotspots all across the country. If each hotspot could send a few people up here for the summer, and Pete and I were hoping to maybe have a headquarter base where we can house, feed, and have all these people live, and then maybe through a network with working with some of these other folks like Curtis and John, like have this place funded where we could do activism and make videos and document like a documentary of like a summer of activism in New Hampshire. So kind of just be like a big you know way to train activists, with paid positions, and maybe not in part where they'd walk away with a boatload of cash, but they'd have a summer worth of experience and
Right.
roof over their head and food in their stomach.
Right.
So.
Yeah, just kind of like the Young Americans for Liberty last year had their come to Kentucky and intern and help Rand Paul get elected or whatever. Like it would be like that, except for civil dis people, anarchists, voluntarists, activists. It could have a lot of potential.
Right. Michael Molinari just got in and he said, where are the hot spots? To me, I would say there are hot spots in the United States. If the man doesn't know he's about to, they are in Orlando, Florida, Austin, Texas, San Diego, California. Phoenix, man. How could I forget you guys? Phoenix.
Shit,
I was like, I jumped somebody in there, but.
Yeah, Vegas. I mean, there's a lot of areas that have some really
Vegas.
key people that are doing awesome stuff. Yeah, like Vegas, the Bay Area. There's a lot of good people.
Right. Even Wyoming. Wyoming's got a good little crew of folks, but they're spread all over because Wyoming's
Philly's
huge.
awesome. New York, they're spread out, but they're around for sure. I mean, they're everywhere. We're growing, that's for sure.
So they're hot.
Yeah, but yeah, this community. I mean, people were asking about Keen and stuff. I'll just end for myself on another example. When I first got out of the cage, I was in for 3.5 days. Anywhere else I've been when I've gotten out of a cage, usually I go back and like try to figure stuff out and what to do next and how to proceed, and usually maybe Ademo's around, so we'll brainstorm. But I got out and was brought, went to a local place in town here, and there was 16 people came out right away. Were able to come out like an hour after, right when I got out, and we just brainstormed. And it was like this very welcoming community and family, and it was awesome. Like we planned on what to do, and it was great.
Even our our Massachusetts trials, which is about an hour south of Keene, New Hampshire, we get 12, 20, 25 people out there. I mean, one time they put us in a small courtroom, it was packed. I mean, people drive hours.
And we're meeting people in Massachusetts now because of this. I mean, there's a Liberty community that's kind of growing and behind the scenes down there now too. So
Like I said, I don't want to take anything from anyone else. And one of the hot spots that I named, you guys got awesome things that's going on. That's what I'm saying. One summer in New Hampshire, and I mean, this place is on a tipping scale right
yeah,
here. You know, there's even people in the statist government buildings in Concord that are making improvements to their own laws. So like, I mean, they're being attacked on all fronts, even by their own.
right.
So
Yeah, if that's your thing, maybe we could do this Summer of Rage and have another crew up in Concord or Manch or something that focus on that stuff.
right.
But yeah, New York. Mike says not New York.
I know. Sorry, Mike. Well, you're not too far from New Hampshire. The cost of living is cheaper here too.
But all right, guys, appreciate all the comments and all the interactions that we've had, personally and online. So
Absolutely, guys. Love you.
peace.
Peace.